Alright, what's up people, Marco here, and today we're going to be talking about the Ruzgar rebuildable tank atomizer. It's by a new company called Highwind Innovative Designs, and this is their debut product. It's their first venture into the Philippine vaping scene, or the vaping scene in general, for that matter. So basically it's a bottom-fed tank, and we're going to be talking a little bit more on how it works, what it, how it stacks up against other similar systems or devices on the market right now. And we're also going to be doing a bit of a rebuild demo later on towards the end of the flip. So that's basically it. Thank you to the Highwind team, by the way, for sending this over for review. We're going to be talking about it in much more detail later on. So stick around. We're going to go ahead and check that out, alright? Alright, so this is what the Ruzgar looks like taken apart. When you purchase it, it comes in this box right here. It's got foam padding inside. And it also comes with an authenticity card, basically certifying that you're getting a legitimate product from Highwind ID. Now, let's talk about the base first. So this is basically what it looks like. This air hole right here is right above where your coil would go. So you fasten it down on these two. You fasten each lead down on these screws. Right here, these Phillip heads, and the cool thing is that the recess on it is pretty deep, so you don't have to worry about accidentally screwing up the indentation and not being able to unscrew your coil. The insulator is right there. It's pretty thin, so just don't go extremely low, or don't attempt any crazy dual coil builds on it. All right, right there. This is the base air hole on the actual deck of the atomizer, and these canals are where the juice, it's where the juice basically seeps up into your wick, and it's parallel on each side right there. It's held. This is what serves as your reservoir. It's a quartz sleeve. It holds a capacity of 2.5 milliliters of liquid. It fastens down using O-rings right here onto the base. There you go. This is the shield for the chamber, which fastens down right here. So once you've gotten your build set up properly, you just fasten this thing down. Make sure that your wick leads don't obstruct the canal, so you don't have any flooding problems, because that would lead to a leak right out here. Alright, this is the spout deck. That's what I call it. I don't know what they refer to it as, but basically this also serves as the roof of the chimney. So basically what happens is your coil right there causes the burning inside, the vaporizing, goes straight up into this hole right here, and funnels into your drip tip. This thing is a 2-in-1 bit. This is where the upper portion of the quartz sleeve fastens down. So I'm not going to drive it all the way down. We're going to do that later. And this screw right here is a fill hole screw. So it comes out and you can actually fill through here. I'm going to talk about that later on. I don't personally do that because it tends to cause some leaks. And this thing fastens down straight onto this, like so. Alright, you want to tighten it down, make sure that there's a significant amount of resistance when you're trying to undo it. I'm going to explain that later on. So basically you want it nice and tight. You stick the quartz sleeve down that way. And before you go ahead and fasten the top cap on, what you do is you take this Delrin piece and have that round thing, that round indentation there, go right on top of the fill screw. This serves as a spit back guard, so that way you don't get that nasty sensation of hot juice spitting back onto your tongue. The shroud, which features the Highwind logo, goes over this, and the cool thing is that it doesn't rub against the quartz. If you listen to it, there's no resistance, because there's a bit of clearance between the protective shroud and the quartz sleeve. I'm assuming that the reason for that is because the expansion rates of glass and stainless steel are different, and they didn't want the glass pressing against the shroud, causing cracks. So basically, this thing fastens down. You want to get it nice and tight right there, that way. and you just pop the top cap on. It fastens down using threading, and then it bites down on that O-ring right there. So yeah, got it nice and tight like that, and you just stick your drip tip in like so. There you go. So this is what it looks like basically. Comparing it to the size of an 18350 battery, yeah, roughly, there you go. So the difference is very prominent right there. Okay, why did I say you got it tightening down the spout deck? It's because sometimes when you're taking the top cap off, if you don't do so, you notice that this threading is actually attached to what holds the quartz in place. And if you don't tighten it properly, this thing is going to yank the whole thing off, and you're going to have a leak. You're going to have a spill, actually. It's not just going to be a bit of a leak, it's going to be a spill. You're going to be wasting the entire content of your Ruzgar. Oh, in case you were wondering, Ruzgar, I'm told, is the Turkish term for winds. That's a nice bit of trivia right there. That's where the name of the atomizer comes from. So, basically, that's what it looks like, disassembled and put back together. Replacement parts are also easily available. You just got to send them a message on Facebook, and they can make replacement parts available for you. I believe they have replacement quartz sleeves, insulators, and terminals. So basically, they have replacement screws as well. So that's basically what it looks like taken apart, and you basically have an idea of the concept behind the feeding into the wick, how it wicks, how it vapes, which I'm going to talk about later on in the video. And you're also going to be seeing a rebuild on it. So yeah, that's basically what it looks like taken apart and put back together. Alright, so after vaping on this thing for a bit, basically we're going to be discussing the pros and cons. Well, for one thing, the draw is perfect for me. It's a bit tighter than other tanks or other atomizers out there, and the absence of an airflow control system, well, you're pretty much stuck with that kind of draw. For me, it works perfect because I'm chasing the flavor and the throat hit, and as you saw earlier, the reduced chamber is a huge help for that aspect, because with the coil sitting closer to the spout, which feeds into the drip tip, you're getting an amplified nicotine buzz, and you're getting a much stronger flavor sensation. So there's very minimal loss in terms of the quality of vape that you're getting. Now, the structure of the atomizer is actually pretty killer too, because you've noticed there is a protective shroud that covers the quartz tubing inside the juice reservoir. It's covered by the stainless steel bit there. It's a shroud that covers it, and you've also seen it taken apart earlier. Cool thing about it is that there's a bit of spacing in between the quartz tube and the shroud. That way if you knock it over, you're not really running the risk of the glass actually cracking unless you drop it from a ridiculous height, which you probably wouldn't want to do with it. Now, regarding the chamber, yeah, it holds 2.5 ml of liquid. Now that might be small considering how big the atomizer is versus perhaps maybe a nano version of other RTAs out there. But well, the reason for that being, it may be taller, but we're talking about a more narrow encasement for your juice. It's not a bad thing really, but it might be for other. It's not really a con per se, but other vapors might find that to be a bit of a talking point because, well, you're going to run dry on juice pretty quick. This thing sips through juice like crazy. You're probably going to be running about 1 to 2 tanks in a day on if you're a moderate to heavy vapor. For casual vapors, probably 1 tank would suffice for the entire day. But yeah, it's not so much a con as it is a talking point. Now, one thing that I like about it is this little bit here comes with a Delrin spitback guard that you stick right there in the middle, and there is a guide for it, so you can just sort of plug it in. This thing actually comes out, if you'll excuse me for a bit. You can actually take this thing right off, clean right off. There you go. And the round bit there fastens down on the screw, which serves as a fill hole, so you just pop that thing there, set it there snug, and screw this thing on. The top cap's the top cap fastens on using threading, and then it bites down on this O-ring right here, which you can see on the edge. Alright, there you go. Now, leaking issues aren't a factor with this particular atomizer. You don't have to worry about that, unless, of course, you have difficulty filling it through the fill hole. What I do is It was a method taught to me by one of the boys over at Vape Age. Well, you take the whole atomizer off. It's a bit of a sweet deal filling this thing, and take the shroud off as well. You tilt the whole thing upside down, and you gently undo the Pyrex, or rather the quartz sleeve, probably about halfway through. Now that it's sitting that way, and you have to make sure that the O-rings are really, really tight down there. You just take your liquid, and you just pump a little bit in right here. Yeah, I'm not going to be filling it up all the way. Now, gently push it back up, make sure the O-ring snaps on, tilt it back upside down, and check for leaking on the base air hole. Fortunately, we don't have any. Alright, there you go, and you're good to go. That's pretty much how you do it. It's a bit messy. You're going to get a lot of liquid on your hands, but it's a really neat way of filling it. I mean, it looks cool, and it's really not as big an inconvenience as it might look. Then you simply just fasten everything back together and stick it back onto your PV. Things should be good to go from there. You're getting a really decent vape on it. Right. The tight draw doesn't affect the quality of vapor that you're putting out. I mean, it puts out a respectable amount. It's definitely more than an analog, but don't expect to get the same amount of vapor that you would get from perhaps a dripper with a tripole setup and dual air holes that you can adjust. So you're getting really massive throat hit. You're getting really, really good flavor retention. I'd say, not to compare it, but I was talking to the Highwind boys, and I mentioned that comparisons to the Svoe Mesto K-Fun would be inevitable. And also owning one of those, I'm going to be doing a head-to-head video much later on. But in terms of the tightness of the draw, it doesn't affect the quality or the quantity of the vapor coming out. The draw is a lot tighter, but it also helps amplify the throat hit and the flavor retention as well. So that's a big plus for me, since that's what I'm after. And generally, RTA, bottom-fed RTA users are chasing that more than they are chasing the clouds. So that's basically a non-issue right there. So yeah, basically that's about it for this. One final tip that I picked up is that when you screw the spout deck right here onto the chimney that you see in there, the cylinder right there in the center, just make sure you do it really tight, because one drawback, and I'd say this is the only real con that I see with this particular tank, is that sometimes when you're taking the top cap off, if you don't screw this bit on tight enough, right when you're taking the top cap off, it's going to yank the whole damn thing out, and the quartz sleeve is going to go right along with it. Now, why is that a big deal? Because if you're doing it just to take the shroud off so you can check on your juice, then you're wasting about 2 to 2.5 ml of your liquid right there. Just make sure you fasten this bit on really tight, and things should be good to go. You shouldn't have any trouble with that. Filling it is, well, not only does it look cool, but it's definitely a lot more convenient, because it's basically a toolless refill. You don't need to pull out your screwdriver. You don't have to have your little beauty kits with all those flatheads and Phillips head tips on it, and just pull the quartz sleeve down, fill it up with your liquid, and you're all set. You're back to using the atomizer. So yeah, that's basically it. Next, we're going to be talking about how to rebuild the thing, because the deck is a bit different. So we're going to be talking about that in a bit. All right. So next, we're going to be talking about how to build this thing. Now, I've already shown you what the deck looks like, so you have a rough idea of how the leads go in. So basically, what I've got here is everything I'm going to need to build. I use cotton to build the Ruzgar. So I'm going to have some tweezers right here to pinch my microfoil together. The nail flipper to just clip the leads nice and tight, because you have a small chamber. You don't want the leads making contact with it, because that's going to lead to a short, and we don't want that. We're going to be using a screwdriver. I'm not sure what the internal diameter of this is, but this is what we're going to be using as a guide. I have a nice little flat head here for doing and undoing the screw, and just some scissors to clip my wire. So I'm not quite sure what measurement I'm going to be getting, but we are using 0.35 millimeter Canthol wire. So this is what we're going to be using for the build. So what I find easiest to do is I make sure that I have the lead behind the screw. So basically that's what it's going to look like. You have it behind and you want to tighten each hole as tight as possible and have the coils as close to one another as you can get them. What I'm going to be doing, since I'm going to be using full mech mod for this, I'm going to be doing about 6 wraps. So we want them as close together as we can get them. If you don't have them 100% close to one another, no worry, you can worry about that later on when you're tightening it down. Okay, just make sure we have this lead here nice and tight. So at the end, you're going to want each lead on opposite ends. So if you look at it this way, you're going to have one lead pointing in one direction. In this case, it's going to be pointing to the left. And you're going to want the other lead pointing to the right. Now, as you can see, the coils are as close together as I could have possibly gotten them. We can adjust that later on. Okay. Alright, let's just add one last just for good measure. So we got it there. 7 coils, or 7 loops rather, around the screwdriver. And I'm just going to lay it down right here. Now, next bit I'm going to need to take care of is loosening the terminals, the ground terminals right here. So we want them loose enough to fit the thick gauge of wire that I'm using. And what I do is I go ahead and plop this thing right here. I hold this thing, pull it inwards that way, and for this I push it outwards that way. So you now have it looking like that with your guide right there. So you have the guide here, still in place. Now what I do first is I fasten one down, the one that I pushed outward. Sorry about that. And I fasten it down nice and tight right there. I pull the lead out a little bit. Okay, wait, we're getting a bit. Yeah, we want it nice and tight right there. You don't want it loosening out because it's going to cause hot spots. Okay, and with that firmly in place, you just turn it around and do the same on the other end. You want to hold it down against the screw that way. Alright, and tighten it down as tight as you can get it. Pull it out. Now, what's nice about the way that you have the leads oriented is that you can just pull on your guide like that, which is why I use a screwdriver instead of a drill bit, because I have better grip on what I'm pulling. And make sure that you have a bit of clearance, that way you don't fry the insulator. Make sure there's a bit of clearance between the coil and the actual air hole on the bottom. So you can adjust it that way. Just pull your guide out, and you have something that looks like that. Okay? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to slap it onto our mod right here and fire it up. Now don't worry if you're not getting an even glow. That's why we have the tweezers right here. Basically what we want to accomplish is we pulse the thing. So we fire it up just a little bit, and while it's hot, we let it go and we tighten it like that. You squeeze or pinch it together using your tweezers. Now what you're trying to achieve is a nice even glow. What you want to happen, the best result you can get is for it to glow from the center going outwards like that. So we're going to try to get that kind of result right there. Alright, so we just have one dead one here. Okay. Alright, there you go. Pretty much we've gotten the glow that we want to achieve. There's enough clearance, so we can go ahead and, if you're having trouble with it, just stick your guide back in. Alright? Make sure you don't accidentally fire the mod because it's going to snap. Let's pull it up a little bit and then just undo it. And repeat the process until you get that glow that you want to achieve. There you go. Now once you've gotten the glow that you want to achieve, you just take your nail clippers and clip the leads off right at the edge. Make sure that you clip them nice and tidy because you don't want the end leads there, those little leftovers right over there. You don't want these making contact with this because it's going to cause a short. Now, I've already pre-rolled the cotton, so you don't have to watch me do it. Other people boil their cotton. I don't see the need to, as long as you have 100% pure cotton. You stick it in like that, and you just pull it through. Don't worry if you're getting a bit of a tussle right there. That just adds to the resistance of the cotton against it. So basically you want it nice and snug. And next thing you're going to do is make sure your mod is locked, because you don't want it to vaporize the cotton right there. What you're going to do is you're going to trim the lead, the cotton leads off that way. And just make sure that the cotton is just kissing against the base. You don't want it obstructing the canals and causing any overflows in the chamber. So you just snip it off like that and make sure it's nice and tidy. So you're going to want it sitting flush against that. If you have it too long, it's only a matter of trimming it a little bit more. There you go. And adjusting cotton wicks accordingly. Okay, so there you pretty much have it. Now what you're going to want to do is wet the entire cotton wick. So we've got some overdose right here. I have mine in 12 mg, so yeah, we're going to be getting some really massive throat hit from this. So you're going to want to make sure that it's all nice and soaked up. Right there. Make sure that you have the whole cotton wick saturated with juice, because you don't want to get any dry hits, because that's going to vaporize the whole cotton. Make sure it's nice and wet. And you're going to want to make sure that the cotton leads are sitting flush against the terminal right there. So what I do usually to flatten that out is I just take the screwdriver and flatten it against the wall. You can check how it fires. Alright, there you go. And you just install the base of the chimney. Now, what you're after is when you look at it right down there, you want to make sure that the cotton is still sitting flush against the terminals and not entirely obstructing the canal. That way you get proper siphoning of the liquid up into the canal. You have just the right amount of wicking, and you don't end up flooding this chamber right here. So once that's all good, test fire it. Make sure you don't have any leads making contact or causing any shorts. Ooh. Yeah, there you go. You fasten down the spout deck, and you place the quartz sleeve right down there. Now, how do I fill this thing? Yeah. So, wait, before I go ahead and do that, I mentioned earlier that you're going to want to make sure that you have the deck nice and tight, because you don't want the quartz tube getting yanked off. So we're going to make sure that we do just that. Alright. We're going to tighten it down. I'm going to go ahead and lubricate the O-rings with some liquid. That way we don't have any trouble sliding the quartz sleeve down. Yeah, there. A lot more snug. So, we're going to leave it upside down this way. Take the liquid, and this is actually the most efficient way to fill this RTA. I want to give a shout out to my man Randel Santiago, one of the boys over at Vapage, for posting the first video to feature this method of filling the Ruzgar. So thank you, brother, for letting me use it in this video. And you just fasten it right down that way. And there you go. Alright, and thankfully we're not getting any pooling. That's what you want to look out for. You don't want to get any pooling of liquid right around there. Alright. Alright, there you go. Just put it back together, and it's all good. Just make sure you have the spit back guard down, and we are good to go. Let's give it a bit of a test vape right there. Just one puff. Make it two. Ooh. Flavor is there, the nicotine buzz, the nicotine rush is all right there. Thanks to the reduced chamber. and it looks really killer on a GG. Alright, there you go. Yeah, you got focus on that? Alright, there you go. Sweet. So that's what the Ruzgar looks like inside, and what it's supposed to look like once you've built it up. So, still no pooling, we're on the right track, this thing is going to be good to go. Alright. Alright, so in a nutshell, the Ruzgar seems to be very good value for money. If I were to be asked, would I be willing to pay for it if the Highwind team did not send it over for free to review? Well, the answer would be honestly yes. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that I would be willing to sell my K-Fun in order to purchase one. Why is that? Well, I'm more of the nicotine rush kind of vapor. I'm after the throat hit, I'm after the flavor retention, I'm after the quality of the vape versus the actual vapor output. While the K-Fun isn't built for vapor output either, I like that the Ruzgar comes with a quartz sleeve. So that means I can tank juices that I normally wouldn't be able to on other tanks. You know, if I could draw a comparison right here, the Squid uses PMMA, the K-Fun uses polycarbonate sleeve. The closest thing that I could get to being able to tank some of my favorite menthol juices or banana juices or cinnamon-based juices is the Aqua by UVO. And the problem with that is that it features a stainless steel body. So I'm not able to see my juice. I might be getting dry hits or worse, vaporizing my cotton, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm really sold on the idea that it includes a quartz reservoir for the actual juice. So I can basically tank whatever the hell I want to put on this thing and not have to worry about it breaking. The design, well, yeah, it is a 22mm finish. So I switched out mods for this part of the review just so you could see that it is in fact a 22mm diameter. So it looks really swanky on Nemesis. There you go. And it looks really good on anything basically that's a 22mm diameter around the top. Well, in terms of structure, obviously it borrows heavily from the Bliss by Doc Dave, and the interior is heavily based on the K-Fun. But it is a very unique spin on it in that it features a very, very small chamber and that one-piece spout deck that I showed you earlier. I like how that reduced chamber amplifies the throat hit because your coil is sitting so close to where it funnels up into your drip tip that you're really not losing any flavor, any nicotine rush, straight from the chamber where the actual vaporizing happens. So I like that feature of it. The concept of the chamber being very small is a real plus for me because you know, I'm fond of those little builds that go snug in there. The wicking system is very efficient. I've only experienced one leak so far, and that's because I jammed the quartz sleeve way too fast. So the pressure must have gotten screwed up somewhere, and I got a nasty leak. But apart from that, it's definitely a lot easier to fill as well. In fact, it looks really kick-ass. I showed you earlier, you turn it upside down, you pull the sleeve like halfway down, and we're good. So in that regard, it trumps the K-Fun. This being the first, at least to my knowledge, the first Philippine-made, bottom-fed, rebuildable tank system, it's definitely, for me, a game changer in the local scene because the flavor retention is there. You don't have to worry about, say, Genesis types out there. They use stainless steel mesh. It's a pain in the ass to build. You know, you gotta oxidize your mesh roll. You gotta make sure that you take the hot spots out. It's very difficult to build. But with a Ruzgar, it's a snap to build. It's a snap to clean. That's another plus for me. All you gotta do is take the sleeve out, wipe the stainless steel parts off, go ahead and rinse the quartz sleeve, and you're good to go. You can switch juices out just that quickly. If you're using wick, all you gotta do is silica wick rather. All you gotta do is dry fire it, and you're good to go. It's a very user-friendly tank once you're used to it. There is a learning curve when it comes to building bottom-fed RTAs. Yeah, that's a given, but that shouldn't be too much of a big deal. I mean, it comes with basically anything, but for the price tag of 4,900 Philippine pesos for it, I'd say it's really, really good value for money. You're able to tank whatever you want. It fits nice and snug on basically every tube mod that's a 22mm finish. The only kink that I could point out is the fact that sometimes if you don't tighten the spout deck on well enough, you're not going to be able to take the top cap off without yanking the quartz sleeve as well. So that's the only talking point that we have to worry about. Once you've gotten the hang of it, that's not even going to happen to you at all. The last bit is that the draw might be too tight for other people. For me, it's absolutely perfect because I mentioned I'm more of a throat hit type of guy. So I'm enjoying the tightness of the draw. They say that this air hole on the base, on the exposed portion right there, they say that it's 1.5 millimeters, but given the reduced chamber inside, I'm getting a much tighter draw versus, say, a dripper with a 1.5 millimeter air hole board. So that's basically the Ruzgar for you. Again, it's, as far as I'm concerned, the first of its kind in the Philippines, and honestly, it's probably, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I hope I don't get any haters for this comment, but I would go as far as saying that it is, for me, the best Philippine-made rebuildable tank atomizer out there, notwithstanding the fact that the others are Genesis types. But I'm sold on the whole concept. I like the flavor retention. I love the throw kit. I love the design. It looks really kick-ass. Check that out. Yeah. The clearance between the sleeve and the quartz reservoir is perfect. It serves its purpose. I knocked this thing over the other day, and I didn't have to worry about possibly cracking the sleeve. Replacement parts are very easily available. Just make sure that you add up the group, the Highwind customer support group on Facebook. I'm going to include the link in the description once we have everything down. And you can easily order the parts. They make it readily available. Basically, that's it. I'm 100% sold on the whole idea. So you guys can go ahead and pick one up. I'm also going to include some of the partner shops or available shops in the video description, so that you know where to pick yours up depending on where you are. These guys are, well, it's absolutely amazing. You can go ahead and check them out at BaitCon on April 12th. They're going to be at booth 6C, so they're going to have their logo flying right there. So you can go ahead and check it out, and you know, who knows, you might pick one up and actually like it. It's an amazing atomizer, and I hope you guys have as much fun with it as I did. So that's basically it for today. You guys have a good evening and great part. Cheers.